So this is really all there is to the story right now. But Monday, August 18th, 2025, according to the WNBA transactions page, the Indiana Fever released Kyra Lambert. So if that is indeed the end of Kyra Lambert's Indiana Fever tenure, it did not last very long. It was just last week we were figuring out who Kyra Lambert was and what her signing meant for the team. Now, I can't tell you beyond what you just saw exactly what's going on here. I'm not above speculating, so a lot of this will be speculation. So I apologize in advance for those of you who don't like to do that dance. But the first thing that came to a lot of people's mind was, could this pave the way for Caitlin Clark's return? So, a few things. The Fever corrected, or at least clarified, why, at least according to them, Caitlin Clark was not at the game in Connecticut yesterday, which was that she was staying back to rehab for a potential ramp up to her return to the floor. And the Fever have this extended break, right? I know there was a death in her boyfriend's family. Of course, everybody always, Connor McCaffrey, thoughts go out to his family and loved ones. So that was initial speculation. So I don't know if the Fever were just trying to clear the air there to not make it too personal, or if indeed it was just simply the case that because it was a one-game trip and they had this break, Clark was staying behind in order to be ready to play or continue her ramp up to a return to play. And then this move comes the next day. Now, why is this move curious? Well, Lambert was on a 7-day deal, so the Fever could just be looking at this break knowing that her contract was going to expire anyway and not wanting to waste her time. But under the hardship rules, as that it has been, put out there and publicized, the Fever only had to release one of the two players between Odyssey Sims and Kyra Lambert once Caitlin Clark was back. But one of them was going to have to go once they picked up two players. Clearly, Odyssey Sims has played herself into more of a role for the Fever. She got a bunch of minutes in the game on Sunday, 42 minutes for Sims. Lambert didn't play, right? So you can see relative one to the other where the Fever were looking at things from the pecking order standpoint. Now, there's also the Sophie Cunningham injury, but to be honest, I'm not sure how that would impact things unless they felt they needed somebody at that position rather than more depth at the point guard position. But with Sophie down, they were down personnel regardless, and they didn't have to make a roster move because of what happened with Sophie. There's no direct cause and effect. Now, if a subsequent transaction comes tomorrow, we shall see. I'd really have to dig into the rules on the hardships and all that. But we did know that once Caitlin Clark was back, one of the two hardship signings was going to have to go. So that's naturally where people's heads were thinking when it was reported on the ESPN broadcast that Clark, the hope was she would return to practice this week with target dates the 22nd, 24th, 26th, those games being thrown out as potential return dates. Now, I don't have any other updates on that. I mean, I took Stephanie White's comments as they hope still she returns at the regular season a little less confident than the previous timeline that was expressed, because she could have said, we're hoping she's back at practice this week and part of the ramp-up process. But you also don't know for sure until somebody's fully healthy. And it is my understanding that they are being extraordinarily deliberate with every step in this process when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But like I said on Sunday, that's the kind of win, if I'm CC, that I watch and say, I got to get back out there. Nothing can stop me from rejoining this team this season. That fight that they showed out on the court. Part of that was Sophie Cunningham's injury, which we still don't have the word on. She's getting an MRI, or she did probably already get the MRI. But there's a YouTuber, or a doctor is a better way to put it, Brian Sutterer, who does a good job with his injury videos. And he took a stab at Sophie Cunningham and what happened. Here's a little bit of his video.
First thing first, of course, we're dealing with a right knee injury for Cunningham, and this is going to be contact. Of course, the player for Connecticut is going to fall into the outside of her right knee, and what that's most likely going to do, we can't exactly see her foot position down here, but I think what this is causing is a forced valgus load from the outside of Cunningham's knee, pushing it inward.
So basically too much strain on the knee from the outside.
That now when the Connecticut player comes in and lands on her, the force is coming in from the outside of the knee and pushing it inward. What this is going to do is potentially cause a number of injuries to the inner medial side of Cunningham's knee from this forced external valgus load pushing the knee inward. Now, the primary things that are going to be on my differential here, of course, this can cause something like an ACL tear. We can see a forced valgus load where a player falls into the outside of their knee, pushes it inward, can cause enough stress to tear the ACL. I'll admit, just the impact, the positioning of her leg to me did not look quite as significant for something like this. I think there's a little bit more force coming in kind of from the backside, push.
So, he says he doesn't think it's likely an ACL.
Concern when you have one of these forced load valgus type of positions where the knee is going to be pushed inwards. This can cause an ACL tear. I don't think that would be the highest on my list. Another thing to consider is, of course, if the knee buckles inward, you're going to have stretch on the inside portion of the joint. The MCL ligament sits on the inside of the joint, and so that can certainly cause some stretch in the MCL when the knee is pushed inward.
So a possible MCL injury, and then finally
dislocation or a kneecap dislocation. Similar mechanism, whenever the knee is valgusly forced inward, the patella has a tendency in its groove to, obviously it wants to stay nice and neutral in its groove, but when patella dislocations, kneecap dislocations happen, it's usually because the patella comes to the outside, the lateral side of the trochlea, from a combination of the knee being pushed inward. And that's another thing, especially with the way that Cunningham reacts with keeping her knee up in this flexed position. This is something that we see people do whenever they've had a patella instability event, because this is the position that is going to be most comfortable initially because they can't straighten their knee out because that kneecap is translated on the lateral side of the joint.
So a possible patella dislocation, those are the diagnoses he runs through there, or potential ones. I will link his video in the description for anybody who wants to watch the entire thing. Again, maybe it turns out the best for Cunningham, and that it was some sort of hyperextension or a contusion, which is a fancy word for bruise, but that can really, really hurt. I mean, I think those are all possibilities on the table. All of the injuries that he laid out, while the ACL would be the most significant, and he didn't seem to think is the case, those other ones would still be pretty severe, I think, relative to the rest of the season for the Indiana Fever. But you never know, and we won't know until the MRI results actually come in on Cunningham. But the interesting season continues to get even more interesting, and the latest wrinkle being the release of Kyra Lambert by the Fever. What does it mean? We'll find out from the team likely tomorrow. Doesn't seem like they had practice today. We'll see if there is a subsequent move coming. I don't see why Sophie Cunningham's immediate status would impact this move, barring another move that they had to make transactionally in order to bring somebody in at that position. And it is logical to think that because they had to release one of Sims or Lambert once Clark was cleared to return, or once she made her way back, that it could indicate the return of CC and her ramping up. We'll see. We'll see. Speculation all about. This is a speculative video. So I hope you enjoyed my informed speculation. You can like and subscribe. And the good news is there's still a season to be saved, as I said, after the Connecticut Sun win. And we shall see when CC will be back for said saving.